Why must a Christian eat vegetarian? We spent a steamy weekend in the middle of the woods. And now, Sunday morning, the adults announced that breakfast would be postponed so that Catholics could keep communion fast. He was one of the campers with an unhappy expression on his face. His question came to mind as Lent started again, for fasting is the season's most characteristic practice. During the 2 days of Lent, Ash Wednesday, and Good Friday, Catholics limit their eating and drinking so they cannot eat and abstain from meat. On all Fridays of Lent they abstain from meat. Why are Catholics vegetarian? Are the reasons given solid foundation in the Bible? When we are fasting, we follow the example of holiness. Moses and Elijah fasted for 40 days before coming before the presence of the Holy Spirit, Acts 34 hours 28 minutes, 1 Kings 19:8. The prophet Anna fasted to prepare her to welcome the coming of the Messiah, LK 2:37. They all want to see God and see fasting as a basic prerequisite. We also want God to be present, so we are vegetarian. Jesus fasted, Mount 4:2. Since he did not need to be pure, he certainly did this to set an example for us. Indeed, he assumed that all Christians would follow their example. He said, "But when you are fasting, do not pretend to be as depressed as hypocrites. They pretend to be servile, so that people may see that they are vegetarian." Mount 6:16. Notice he didn't say if you are vegetarian, but when. And when now, during Lent, the Church expands the idea of fasting, beyond skipping meals to a program that goes beyond self-denial. Jesus said, "Whoever wants to follow me must abandon himself, take up his cross daily and follow." LK 9:23. So we give up something we normally love, candy, soft drinks, a favorite TV show, or some extra sleep. Fasting is healthy, but not the same as dieting. Fasting is something much more spiritual and positive. Fasting is a sacred feast. Fasting is needed for the soul as the body needs food. The Bible clearly explains the specific spiritual benefits of a vegetarian diet. Fasting brings humility, peace 69 hours 10 minutes. Fasting reveals my grief for my sins, 1 Sam 7:6. Fasting paves the way to the Lord, Dan 9:3. Fasting is a means of knowing the will of God, or 8:21, and is a very effective method of prayer, 8:23. It is a sign of true conversion, GE 2:12. Fasting helps us to get rid of things of this world. We fast, not because of mundane things, but precisely because they are good. They are God's gifts to us. But they are so good that sometimes we prefer these gifts to the giver. It turns out that indulgence is more pleasurable than self-denial. We often eat and drink to the point of forgetting God. Such passions are actually a form of idolatry. What St. Paul meant when he said, "The Lord they worship is the belly, those who think only of the world's," Phil 3:19. How can we enjoy God's gifts without forgetting the giver? Fasting is a good way to start. The body wants more than it needs, so we should give it less than it wants. St. John of the Cross says that we cannot lift our hearts to God if we are attached to things of this world. So we give up the comfort and gradually we no longer depend much on them, we no longer find it unnecessary. All of this is part of our preparation for kingdom. Because after all, we have to end up losing the good things in the world. Time, age, illness, and doctor's orders may stop enjoying the taste of chocolates, a cold beer, and even the intimate embrace of a loved one. If we do not abstain from our desires, these losses will leave us bitter and distant from God. But if we follow Jesus in self-denial, we will find more constant comfort in ultimate goodness, God Himself. How can some still be serene and joyful in the face of extreme suffering and even in the face of imminent death? It is not just a matter of temperament. They have prepared themselves for the moment to give up the things of this world, a little at a time. They have grown accustomed to making small sacrifices so that the big sacrifices will not be too overwhelming. Nobody said the vegetarian diet is easy. Indeed, Benedictine Father Thomas Acklin, author of The Passion of the Lamb, God's Love Poured Out in Jesus, said, "Vegetarianism seems very difficult, and it seems that if I don't eat, I will become depressed, won't work anymore, or can't pray or do anything else. He added, however, there was a wonderful moment, when after a few hours passed, my stomach stopped growing and I even forgot what I had missed. Then it felt light, freedom, clarity, attitudes and feelings, an incomparable closeness to God. Lent is a special occasion, but the Lord wants those 40 days to have a lasting effect on our lives. Therefore, in a sense, the vegetarian diet should be kept forever. Father Rene Chapman, a chaplain of Opus Dei in Pittsburgh, says he learned this lesson directly from a saint. I learned from Saint Josemaria Escriva, whom I personally have the privilege of knowing, someone who makes small sacrifices at every meal, always, not just during Lent. Fr. Chapman emphasized the importance of the small things, and the great impact they can have. We should all feel the need to help Christ redeem the world by practicing self-denial. Days, normal eating, to get rid of a little, or a little bit of what we like best, avoid eating between meals, skipping snacks or desserts, etc., without making it big story. A Pittsburgh businessman, requested anonymity, told me about his long-term vegetarian practice on Fridays, fasting for 12-15 hours, drinking only water. However, this can be difficult to do, he says, not because of hunger, but because it can interfere with family life. It's hard to sit at home dining table without eating. It doesn't matter that much, resisting the temptation of the food. I always felt like I was losing intimate moments. My vegetarian diet really makes me feel selfish, like I'm taking something away from my family time between close meals together. Since then he has revised his vegetarian diet, not for family dinners. Why are Catholics vegetarian? The anonymous businessman put this well, it is the remedy for my biggest problem of selfishness and lack of self-control. To force myself to curb my appetite, not to satisfy my desires even for a short period of time, that is a good way to keep a vegetarian diet. To give a little sacrifice to God, to my family, to people who are starving without a choice of their own, this I think also helps. The three distinctive signs of Lent: prayer, fasting and charity work.